Hi and welcome to another episode of MK Indy RX5 build. So what I'm going to do today is basically start stripping down this engine, ready for paint, ready for actually stripping it back, cleaning it and actually taking off all the parts. This is a Mazda MX-5 Mk2.5 with the variable valve timing. You can tell that because of this big lump on top up here. This is from a 2004 Euphonic MX-5 and this is absolutely brilliant donor vehicle for the build. MK Sports Cars actually recommends normally a Mark II because it doesn't have the variable valve timing and actually makes it a little bit easier to turbo potentially later on. But there are several builders out there that have already taken a Mark II.5, turboed it, put it into an MK Indy without any problems at all, so there really isn't any problems there. What am I going to do today? I'm going to take off all of the crankcase cover, alternator, inlet manifold, all of the ancillaries and get this back to the bare block. I'm not going to be separating the head and doing any internal work, mainly because the engine was running really sweetly when I took it out of the vehicle, so that really shouldn't be a problem. So I'm not going to worry about any of that. Strip it down, clean it and actually basically then get it ready for paint. That's what we're doing today, so let's get on with it. So the plan now is to use a combination of degreaser, bit of hard elbow grease, some wire wool brushes on drills to really try and get all of this off now. But before I do that, I now need to tape up all of the holes. I don't want any bits from my cleaning going into any of the holes, so I'm going to clean around all of the inlet ports. I'm going to clean all around the coolant pump housing. Clean all around those first, take them off nicely so that they're not actually going to get any more muck in them. I'm going to put a cover over the top of the actual cranks and also put something underneath. So that's what I'm going to do now, spend a little bit of time just cleaning everything up, ready. What I do have here is a massive box full of bits, so I've basically bagged them. So each of them I've labelled up. Cam surround, and got things like the VVTI socket and stuff like that. So all of that's all bagged up, labelled, so I don't forget what's going on. So that's pretty much it. That's me now. Going to get on with taping this up, ready to start cleaning. got this now to a point where I've basically stripped it down, cleaned it to death, taped everything up, and we're now on the verge of being able to paint this. I'm just going to quickly walk you through some of the things I've actually done to get to this stage, and just show you some of the products I've used. So one of the most important things I've used was essentially a drill with a wire. It's a brass covered steel brush on the end, which essentially has been used all over to loosen up all of the dirt, get rid of all of the rust. And there's all different types and sizes. This one here in particular is very good at getting the initial rust off, and then these ones get into the little gaps. So these have been really useful. I've also then used a Dremel for some of the smaller elements with a very similar wire brush on the end. The one thing to note with the Dremel is that the bits don't last very long at all. The steel brushes don't last very long, particularly if you're running them at the high revs. So combination of all of those has loosened up all of the dust and rust, and a massive thanks to my mate Dave, who's given me a hand to do some of that, grafted away, getting filthy with taking some of this off. It is a pretty dirty business, but it's kind of got there. What I've used as well is a bit of gunk, which essentially this is ready to use. This is only a litre. I've used barely any of it. It goes quite a long way. Absolutely stinks, but you put that all over, that helps get rid of the grease. Combination of that and the wire brushes, also things like manual wire brushes, really has got it back to where we are at the moment. The other thing which was key, particularly on the iron block, was a stuff called Q-Rust, which is by Hammerite. This is basically back to metal, and once you've cleaned it to death, you will start to see that there's sort of surface rust starts reappearing on here overnight once it's dried. So I've basically used this to actually paint all over the block, and it gives it this sort of like black finish in the end, where it takes any of the last bits of rust back to be a really good paintable surface. So what I've then done, I've taped off everything that is not wanting to be painted. I've also got some little rubber bungs which are used for if you're doing things like powder coating and that for engines. Tiny little rubber bungs like that, which can go into any of the threaded holes that you actually don't want paint to go in. So I've used those just on this side, on the other side on the injector holes, as part of the cleaning process, and now as part of the painting process. At the same time, I've got a whole bunch of the smaller parts I've taken off the engine, and I've cleaned those up in exactly the same way, and I'm going to do those as well at the same time. So on we go.